This is what democracy looks like.
Show me what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. This is union busting.
What's disgusting?
Union busting.
What's disgusting?
Union busting.
Union busting.
Union busting.
What's disgusting?
Union busting.
What's disgusting?
Union busting.
What's disgusting?
Union busting.
What's disgusting?
Give me a drink.
It is my pleasure to introduce to you Scott Walker, the governor of Wisconsin.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
So what benefits do you have coming here to Illinois?
Oh, in our case, to show the people of Wisconsin what the difference is.
Have you
And
talked to Governor Quinn?
Not today. No, I've talked to him plenty of times before, and I think he's an honorable man. I like Governor Quinn. This is not about me and him. This is about the fundamental difference. I have a number of candidates running against me right now, two of whom yesterday said they embrace tax increases.
So it is
Well,
a campaign stop for you here today.
Absolutely, to tell the story that if people in Wisconsin want the kind of stalled economic activity, we've seen above 9% unemployment here for the past year in Illinois. It's bigger unemployment rates than we have in the country as a whole. It's much bigger than the state of Wisconsin. If people want to see what it would be like, the way that Kathleen Falk and Tom Barrett are proposing tax increases on businesses and individuals, that's what happened here in Illinois, and we see it. It's stalled. It has not helped the economy in the state of Illinois. We faced an economic and a fiscal crisis when I was running in 2010, and then I told people what I do. And then, like anybody in business who takes over a failing company, you don't wait a year or 6 months or even a month. You start acting on it the very first day you take over the company, right? If you wait, things just get worse. In our case, Wisconsin couldn't wait. We had to take action. And so we called the legislature into a special session literally the very first day I took office. I took the oath of office, gave my speech, walked back to my conference room, and handed the new Speaker of the Assembly and the new Senate Majority Leader the letter calling them into a special session. And we passed aggressive changes to help job creators in our state. We lowered the tax burden for job creators, for small businesses. We made it more attractive for investors to bring not only business but investment into Wisconsin-based companies into our state. The more people tackle the tough issues, the better off we are. They haven't done it here in the Capitol in Springfield, but ironically, there are plenty of other Democrat leaders, not just governors, like Governor Cuomo was talking about in New York State, Governor Brown in California, but even Mayor Rahm Emanuel has taken on some of the unions, particularly in the education system in Illinois. And I think he, like others, understand if you're discerning about it, we can't sustain anywhere in America the kind of growth that put the burden on the taxpayers that we've seen in the past. At any other time, in any other circumstance, helping the people of your state create more jobs, helping improve your fiscal standing, not through one-time gimmicks or other problems, but instead, not through tax increases or layoffs or things of that nature, but instead through long-term structural reforms, and most importantly, making the government work better for the people you serve. Well, in a couple of years in 2014, in any other time, in any other place, that'd be a pretty compelling argument for re-election, wouldn't it? And then I'm facing a recall election. Well, why is that? Well, it's because not just the people outside, but the people who directed them to come outside, a handful of big government union bosses, not just in my state, but particularly in Washington, think that I'm standing in the way of their power and their money. See, it's not just about what we did there. It's also about the fact that in doing this and moving this forward, we gave the public employees in our state, overwhelmingly, we gave the vast majority of public employees in our state the freedom to choose. Freedom to choose about whether they want to be in a public employee union or not. And in doing so, they can decide whether they want to take that union money, which might be $1,400, $1,500 that a school teacher in Milwaukee is paying, and instead spend that on their pension contribution or their health insurance premium, or maybe to set a little bit of money aside for their kids' college education. They can choose to keep that for themselves. And unfortunately, the handful of those union bosses don't like that very much. Because like most of us, if you can choose, You're going to choose to keep it for yourself. You're going to spend it on your own family and your own resources, your own needs out there. And that, for them, is really what this is all about.
Well, I think particularly in Illinois' case, with all due respect, and I think Governor Quinn and others are trying to do their best, but it is a clear choice in Wisconsin come June 5th. People need to understand going backwards is not just going backwards in time in Wisconsin's case to the days when we had double-digit tax increases, billion-dollar budget deficits, and record job loss. We can see what's happening right here in Illinois. I mean, even though you've got probably well-intentioned people, the reality is when you had such a dramatic increase in taxes on individuals and on businesses, that brought about even bigger problems the year after. The unemployment rate's above 9%. In our state, we went the opposite direction. We put more emphasis on helping the taxpayers, helping the employers of our state. And for the first time since 2008, our unemployment rate's below 7%. Unlike Illinois, our bond rating is maintained. In fact, Moody's called our budget credit positive. They downgraded Illinois'. We added more money to Medicaid to care for needy families, children, and seniors. Illinois is talking about cutting 2.7. We avoided massive layoffs of public employees. Illinois is talking about shutting down 14 state facilities and seeing the possible layoff of thousands of public employees. On every measure, our pension system for state employees is essentially fully funded. Illinois is the worst funded in the country. If voters in our state want to know the difference between going forward or backwards, they need to only look at the mess that you have in state government here in Springfield to know what it would be like if the recall ultimately prevailed.
You're going to ultimately see that when we prevail, I think it's not just a powerful message in Madison, in my state house. I think right here in Springfield. I think over in Indianapolis and in St. Paul and in Austin and Columbus, in state houses all across America. I think it will send a powerful, powerful message, but even more so in the halls of Congress in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. I think when we prevail, it will send a powerful, powerful message that if you stand up, if you take on the tough issues, if you do what we all know is right and is just and is appropriate for the time, that ultimately there'll be people standing there with you.
Our argument's going to be about moving forward, not backwards. For us, we're not. I've said all along, my opponents are not the people on the ballot. My opponents are the massive amounts of out-of-state money from the big government union bosses in Washington. They're the ones that want to take me out. They're the ones that want to get back control of the money and the power in the state of Wisconsin. And they're the ones the most upset because we put the power back in the hands of the hardworking taxpayers.
We've got to spend more of our time in this country thinking about that next generation and not just getting past the next election.
Well, I think unlike what I joked about with Governor Daniels, we love visitors from Illinois. I grew up in a town where there are a lot of visitors, particularly from Chicago and northern Illinois. A lot of people, whether it's in Walworth County or Door County or Vilas County or places like that. So we don't have a problem. We maybe have a problem with some of the politicians in Illinois, but certainly not the people of the state. I think for us it's just as clear as Illinois is our neighbor. We can see the difference. People can see the fundamental difference in two different philosophies. My opponents in the race on June 5th are making the case that higher taxes and going back to putting union leaders in the public sector back in charge of state and local government is a good thing. I think the hardworking taxpayers of my state should be the ones who call the shots. I think that's better for our economy. I think that's better for our fiscal standing. And I think on literally every measure, you look at the rankings on just about anything. CO Magazine this past year moved us up 17 spots to number 24. They moved Illinois down to 48 in the best and the worst states to do business in. You look at bond ratings, Moody's called us credit positive when Moody's downgraded Illinois' bond rating. On just about every measure out there, we've fared better because of the reforms we put into place in Wisconsin.
It's time to move our states and our country forward. Thank you for the chance to share, and I appreciate being here today.